Thank you very much for being here today. It's a pleasure to be with Brian. So I'm going to be making some forward-looking statements. I'd encourage you to check our website, our presentation, and peruse that at your own leisure. So we are focused on our Lawyers Ranch project in the Toodoggone district of North Central British Columbia. This was a very active area back in the 70s and 80s, and our project, the Lawyers project, was actually a past-producing gold-silver deposit. It was a high-grade underground epithermal system and operational for about 4 years, but the project shut down just with depressed gold prices in the early 90s. Then in 2018, we acquired the assets, and at the time, it was about 100,000 gold equivalent ounces. And over the last 7 years, we've steadily grown that through to 4.7 million ounces, 4 million of which is measured and indicated at just over 1.5 grams gold equivalent. So great grades for what is predominantly an open pit project and a fantastic jurisdiction. And there's a lot of upside there as well, and what is a kind of a resource that we have a lot of confidence in. And as Brian said, about a quarter of the value of the project here is actually in silver. There's 84 million ounces measured and indicated, 93 million ounces total. But, to give you some context of how much that is, if we were to go into production today, we'd actually be the biggest silver producer in Canada and the 5th largest in North America. So significant exposure to silver. And arguably, I think silver probably has more torque at this point than gold potentially does. As Brian mentioned as well, we put out a PEA on the project last year with some phenomenal project economics that I'll get into in a coming slide, but also a very strong production profile. And in this part of British Columbia, we're fortunate to be working with 4 member nation partners on the asset. They're fantastic partners, and we've got great relationships there. I think you're going to see those strengthen and solidify in the coming months as well. And recently, just last week, we announced a strategic investment by Centerra Gold for 9.9%, and great partners to our shareholders to join the company. And, in this sense, the partnership is very strategic, and I'll get into why. But great to have them on board. As Brian said, that transaction happened at a 10% premium to where we were trading on a 5-day VWAP, so it was at $1.03, and we're trading in at the $1.03 range at the moment. Okay, so, we're here today in Vancouver. You can drive or fly to Prince George. It takes about 8 hours. And then from Prince George, you can drive up to the project area, past Mackenzie. You can follow that red line there. And then taking a look at the inset map on the left-hand side of the screen, you drive past Centerra Gold's Kemess copper-gold porphyry deposit, and then onto our land position at the end of the road in gold. And our project is essentially split between 2 assets, the Lawyers project and the Ranch project in the north. The Lawyers is the critical mass of the asset at the moment. It's like 4 million of the 4.7 million ounces. But arguably, Ranch is the blue sky here. It's the opportunity to significantly grow that resource in the coming months and years. Because this is a brownfield development site, the infrastructure in this part of BC is excellent. You can see the road network there. We've put in 6 new bridges over the last few years. They're rated to 70 plus tons, so they're future-proofed for any kind of mining scenario. There's an airstrip just on the southern end of the Lawyers project that we frequently use. And more importantly, you can see the Kemess mine there. There's a power line tie-in at Kemess. For those of you who are not familiar with that deposit, it was a former past-producing copper-gold porphyry. It went into care and maintenance in 2012, but Centerra's been a lot more active on the asset in the last couple of years. There's a fully permitted mill here. It's 50,000 ton per day nameplate mill. There's a camp, fully permitted tailings, and the power line. Now, for us, don't get me wrong, we're going to continue advancing our asset through towards a construction decision as a standalone project. And I think when I show you the economics, you'll agree that it totally makes sense. But at the same time, we can now work with Centerra, leverage their deep expertise in British Columbia. They also have a producing asset about 250 kilometers south of Kemess, Mount Milligan, another copper porphyry deposit. But utilize their geological engineering teams, but more importantly, look at how we leverage the infrastructure in the area. Are there synergies to be found here utilizing that infrastructure? How does that help us with permitting? Can we fast track our permitting because we potentially don't have to build a mill? We don't have to look at tailings. There's a lot of opportunity here, and it provides significant flexibility, I think, to optimize what already is a phenomenal asset. Okay, so just a quick overview of the PEA that came out in September last year. Highlights in the gold box there in the center. But commodity prices that we used, 1930 gold and 24 silver. It seems so far away from where we currently are. But at the time, that was the 3-year trailing average. And we wanted to let the project speak for itself, essentially. So used conservative prices. That generated an after-tax NPV of 1.3 billion Canadian, 35% IRR with a 2-year payback. Now, to put that in the context of today's prices, that generates the after-tax NPV would be 3.45 billion, 71% IRR, and a 0.9-year payback. So, this project works under a range of commodity prices, but under where we are today, it's phenomenal. Great production profile where we're looking at 3 million mineable ounces, producing on average 215,000 gold equivalent ounces a year over a 14-year mine life. So strong production profile, and arguably, hopefully I can point to how we could potentially improve on this as well. And I think from a district perspective, there's a lot of upside here. And the capex is very reasonable as well at 600 million Canadian. We've got a pretty good handle on this as well. I don't think you're going to see it run away. And even at the commodity prices we used in the study, that's a 2.1 to 1 NPV to capex ratio. So very reasonable build here. The other thing that we've really got going for us is that, we're a few hundred kilometers inland from coastal British Columbia. So, which may not seem that important, but, outside, where we are today, the rugged coastal mountains of British Columbia, we don't have that. We don't get 10 meters of snow a year. There's no glaciers. You can see the topography here. It's basically subalpine to alpine plateaus with broad rolling valleys, very limited vegetation. And I think at camp this year through the winter, we had about 50 centimeters of snow on the ground. Why is this all important? One, I think in terms of building a mine, it's very straightforward. Look, the centralized milling facility here proposed between the 3 main open pit deposits on the Lawyers project on that big, broad, flat plateau. And you can see, this is predominantly an open pit project. You can operate open pit mines year round. It's logistically straightforward. Small footprint for the project here as well. Okay, so where we are today, Centerra came in last week for a 9.9 investment. Fantastic stamp of approval for the project. I used to get a lot of questions around, on paper, this asset looks amazing. Why do you guys have no strategic involved? Now we do. They went through a significant due diligence process, not only on the asset, but also the company itself. And I think that's a huge milestone for us. And post-PEA, we rolled straight into a PFS that's been led by Ausenco and Mining Plus. We wanted a globally recognized brand with a great track record that has the potential to take this project through to construction and production as well. So that right now is on track for early Q4 this year. I don't think you're going to see any significant scope or scale changes to what was announced in the PEA. Really, it's all about optimizing what we currently have. And one of the big advantages of this project as well is, it's pretty vanilla. It's very straightforward. We're also looking at commencing permitting this year. That's going to begin probably around September time with initial project description. We're going to be working very closely and collaboratively with our First Nation partners on this, which will be a first for British Columbia. And in addition to that, the BC government has also came out recently and been kind of very bullish, recognizing that we're a resource-based country, and they're looking to accelerate specific projects through the permitting timeline. I definitely see our project being added to that list once we commence permitting in September. Also, we're looking at doing a significant drill program this year, and that'll be discovery focused. It's looking at not necessarily growing the resource. I think that'll happen naturally, but it's about testing new deposits and, as Brian said, looking at the porphyry potential in the district. I'm currently out of time, but I'm going to keep going for a brief moment here if you just bear with me, because I think this is really exciting. So in the Toodoggone district, you can see the map here on the left-hand side. That's the broader district. Some of you have probably heard me before stand up here and say, that there's a ton of upside left in this district. It's been overlooked. I think, that's only been compounded by, the new discovery by AMARC and Freeport, that porphyry right at surface, high-grade gold copper system. Billions of dollars have been spent to the west of us in the Golden Triangle. They've found some phenomenal deposits. We have the same geology, the same ages of mineralization, the same styles of mineralization, but we've just not seen the exploration dollars spent in this district. That's starting to change. It's starting to get the recognition it deserves. What that means for Thesis, though, is that on our ranch project, we have a 40 square kilometer structurally controlled high sulfidation system that we've just scratched the surface on. I think the gold system we're going to target this year, there's potential to grow that. And on top of it, we're going to plug some deeper holes, test the porphyry potential as well. And I think that recent discovery gives us the conviction to do that. Okay, so skip over this. Very briefly, why invest in Thesis? For tier 1 jurisdiction, where the government is actually working with us, we've got a 500 square kilometer district scale asset that we've really just scratched the surface on. Its infrastructure is basically in place, which is pretty turnkey. We've got a large resource, significant exposure to silver, a lot of upside, phenomenal project economics, great partner nations in this part of British Columbia, stamp of approval for Centerra, and a large program coming up this summer. Thank you very much.